This is Dominic Bruno with the presentation of my final project. This is an assignment that I'm actually going to use. I'm intending on using it in about a month in my Journalism 1 class this year. A little bit of context for the project. Journalism 1 is an elective course. It's a prereq for any of the other upper-level journalism classes in the program. I've taught for 15 years, but only advising the program for the previous 5, so I've just had to do a lot of learning on the fly. It's been a lot of fun. The program's grown a ton, but I'm always looking for ways to improve. I always start by teaching fundamentals of press law and ethics. I don't want my kids unknowingly breaking any rules, the basics of interviewing, because they all tend to be pretty nervous and anxious about interviewing people when they come in, and source selection and the structure and style of the traditional news story. I don't want to bore them, though, with too much classroom instruction, so I like them to learn by doing. I try to get them to embrace what I call the news hounds mentality and start finding topics or events they would like to cover. And within a few weeks, I typically will have my students out there covering actual events and writing their first news stories. That's where I do run into some problems, though. Some kids really gravitate towards this and they love doing it right away. But I would say some years, the majority of students are still nervous about it when that time comes to go write their own. Some parents don't like it either. If their kids have to stay late at school, if they need rides, things like that. So what I've tried to come up with is something to replicate the process without actually sending them out into the wild before they're ready. So where AI comes into this assignment is I use ChatGPT to help me generate 5 hypothetical but realistic scenarios. All of them could happen in a high school environment. Some of them have happened in recent years. I created fake sources with fake names, and I asked ChatGPT to give me some information that students could then use to write a story. I use Stable Diffusion to create 4 images per scenario, and then that will allow students to pick which picture to embed within their story. We always do that with any story that we print. We have at least one picture, so I want them to get used to having that, embedding it, and writing captions. Then I developed an assignment instructing students how to use Copy AI. I use my own written instructions and some screenshots to walk them through it, give them a chance to experiment with it. And that's because I want them to get used to promoting their work. In journalism, that's a difference from what they're used to with English classes, where they just turn their writing into a teacher. Here, we got to promote it because we want people to see it. So I won't go too far into this because each of these scenarios will look the same. These will be posted within Canvas within separate folders with all the information pertaining to each scenario. The box on the first page is the same with each of the 5 scenarios. It's just instructions. And then the story slug tells students what this story is about so they can pick. And then I copied and pasted my prompt to ChatGPT along with the output from ChatGPT. There's information in both that they might use in their story. The output does contain quotes from the made-up sources. And so really what they just got to do is piece all of this together. This is not a news story itself, but it's got the information that they would likely come away from an event like this with, and they have to write the story. There are the 4 images from Stable Diffusion. They would just pick one, right-click, download it to their devices, embed it within the story, write a caption. Scenario 2, based on a Board of Education meeting that's coming up to finalize a referendum proposal. There's 4 pictures. Scenario 3, all about preparing for homecoming, the dance with a week full of activities. And again, you can see the sources and the quotes. There's the pictures. Scenario 4 is all about Caitlin welcoming a new principal to start this school year. That happened last year, so it's a really similar scenario. And I do realize, like, these images, some of them kind of funny, but that's where I could tell them, like, hey, that's why I want you taking your own pictures. We can do better. But realistically, kids will have fun with this. And then story 5 is about tornado damage to various parts of Canaan High School that caused a degree of devastation. All right, and there's those 4 images. The last page of each of those scenarios would instruct them, again, to write the story. They would download a copy of the scenario that they're writing about, and then they would write a draft of their story on that same document, which they would then share with an email account I've created called crierreporters@gmail.com. The social media promotion would come in after they've had a chance to apply 2 rounds of peer feedback. Once they've submitted it to me to Canvas for grading, they would be directed to do this. They've got to get used to bragging about their work and getting people to see it. So Copy AI has a bunch of different functions, but one thing they can do is help you create social media content. So I gave them screenshots, links, walked them through how to do that. It's 5 different steps, and then I kind of let them loose. That's my plan, and they'll get to experiment with it a little bit. If you're at all curious to see what the Crier looks like, that's our publication. Here's a screenshot of our website, CaitlinCrier.com. Feel free to check it out. And here's a whole bunch of our print issue covers. Thanks a lot for watching.